Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this really fun winter scene tumbler. As always, I'll make sure to put everything that I used today down in the description box below so that way you guys can shop those items if you would like to. And if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. The tumbler that I'm going to be using today is actually a 25-ounce stemless wine glass. I've never used this shape before, but I really like how it really accentuated my winter scene today. Now I went ahead and I prepped my tumbler and I painted it white with black on the top. And as you see, it is not perfect because you don't want it to be perfect because that's going to add to the hills and valleys of our scene that we're going to be putting together. So just spray paint some white on there, make it have just a little bit of character like I've done here. Go ahead and let that dry. And now I'm just going to apply my epoxy and then we're going to go ahead and apply our glitter. And of course, if you would like to use Mod Podge for this round, you can absolutely do that as well. It does not matter, however you guys want to do it. All right, now that my epoxy is covering my tumbler really well, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the glitters I'm gonna be using. I'm gonna use Cora, I'm gonna use Ice, I will also be using Black Diamond, and I will also be using White Diamond. And those are all from my glitter shop, socglitters.com. Now I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way to the top of my tumbler. So I'm going to start with my white color first, which will be kind of our snowbanks that our houses will be able to nestle down into. You just want to simply add that right into the white area that you made yourself. And again, just like our spray paint, this doesn't have to be perfect. If your glitter dips up into your black, it's fine. It's just going to give it more character because houses are going to be covering around the middle anyways. So even if you didn't get this part exactly correct, it's all good. No one's even going to notice. Now I'm going to go ahead and start working on our skyline here. And I forgot to mention, if you don't have White Diamond, but you have Pinnacle, it's exactly the same thing. It's actually a sister cut of White Diamond. So you could go ahead and use that for the bottom coloring if you already have that on hand. Now for the center part, I'm going to go ahead and put Cora on here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect because we just kind of want everything to blend together. And if you see, it kind of gives it an orange color, but if you don't have Cora and all you have is ice, you could definitely just go ahead and use your ice halfway up, and then I'll show you guys here in a second. I just put a little bit of Black Diamond at the very top just to make sure that it kind of anchors all those colors down. So here I'm going to go ahead and move on to my ice. I'm going to sprinkle that in really good, just kind of giving it a light ombre. Then I'm going to come through with my Black Diamond and finish up around the rim. And I also want to mention that Cora and Ice are a translucent glitter. So if you have translucent glitters on hand that you're like, well, I want to do pink or purple or however you guys want to do it, it is perfectly fine. Go ahead and do it that way. The reason why I like to use translucent glitters when I'm doing these kind of things, especially with a black background, it just kind of darkens up the color and gives it more of a shiny, shimmery look. So that's why I like to use the translucent colors on a black background. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this up. I'm gonna set this off to the side. I'm gonna let that cure, and then we'll be ready to add a coat of epoxy over top of our raw glitter. And I almost forgot to mention, make sure you pat down your little chunky glitters there. And these are kind of like a medium size glitter, but you still want to pat them down so that way it makes your application of your epoxy much easier. So here it is after it's nice and cured. I went ahead and I sprayed it down really well with my 2x Ultra Clear there. That just really helps out any of those glitters from shifting around and blending down into areas we don't want it into. So I went ahead and popped it off its plunger wand. I'm going to clean up the rim really well, and then I'm going to put that back on its wand and apply another coat of epoxy right over top of the raw glitter. Now I'm going to be using my quick coat epoxy for this just to kind of make it move along a little bit quicker, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and this is a 25-ounce, I used 30 mLs of epoxy to cover my raw glitter. That's more than enough epoxy to cover it to make sure we have a nice smooth surface to be able to apply our decals on. but because I'm using my quick coat, it was about 5-6 hours later, we were ready to apply the decals. Now here it is, ready to go. I'm gonna go ahead and trim up that rim. Again, you guys know I like to do that every single round. It just makes it easier in the end. I'm also gonna take my 500 grit sandpaper, and I'm gonna go ahead and make sure everything is nice and smooth all around the edges, up around the top, and all through the middle, so that way we can have a very nice smooth surface. And after I'm done sanding it, I'm just going to take some rubbing alcohol and mist that on there and wipe it down really good to remove any of those particles. Now let's talk about the decals that we will be applying today. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of scene you use or what kind of tumbler. I just kind of want to show you a trick that I like to use when I'm applying scenes like this, just to make it so that way I know what size I want the house is and kind of the placement beforehand before I go ahead and print everything out. I measured my tumbler. It was 9 by 7, so I went ahead and did up a square that was 9 by 7. I'm going to put that to the foreground or the background of my images here, so that way I can bring them up front. But as you see, I already kind of had it laid out just a little bit, but I want to make sure that it's going to completely wrap around. So that's the whole purpose of this. Because I know it's hard, especially when you go ahead and you think you have all the right sizes, you print it out, and then it ends up that they were too small or whatever the situation may be. So again, this is just a great visual to be able to give yourself. And then you can also go ahead and print out as many as you would like, fit as many as you can on your piece of paper too, if you plan on doing more than one tumbler. So again, this is a great way to kind of shimmy everything together and figure out how many you're going to need and to make sure that it's going to fit. Now, when I go to print this out, I'm going to actually use clear water slide paper. I'll show you guys that here in a second, but you want to make sure that you turn off the bleed when you go to print these out. I've done that before as well. Make sure you turn the bleed off and go ahead and print that out, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, my tumbler is nice and clean after I sanded it here. Now, like I said earlier, I did print this out on clear water slide paper. Now, could you use white water slide paper? Sure, if you'd like to, but I know the majority of us do not have white water slide paper, and I really feel like doing it this way actually makes it look nicer. I went ahead and I sprayed it with my clear spray. It's already nice and sealed with my clear spray already. Now, if you guys have seen this trick by Courtney's Customs, I'll make sure to attach her stuff down below, but she actually has a video on how to do this with spray paint and everything like that. So I'll make sure to attach that down below on how she does hers. But you want to go ahead and seal up your water slide paper just like you normally would. Then you're just going to simply come back through, and I have a lot of little details, so I'm just going to take a white acrylic paint marker. I'm going to fill in those tiny details first. Then after I fill in the little details, because I have like the trees and everything that I have to do, after I do all those tiny details, I'm going to come back through with regular just acrylic paint and fill in the rest of it. Now, I just got the white acrylic marker right at Hobby Lobby, and I also got this giant thing of white acrylic paint as well, but I know it's just becoming that time of year where it's getting hard to kind of spray paint and stuff, so to be able to use your paint, your regular acrylic paints when possible is nice. So I'm just going to go ahead, like I said earlier, I'm going to finish filling in all these little details. Now, you want to make sure you don't go too much out of the outside, because if you paint outside of your lines here, you'll be able to see it on your darker background, and we don't want that. So you just want to get as close as you can, kind of filling everything in. You're going to let that dry, and I did 2 coats of this white acrylic paint over top here. I let it dry really well. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut all my decals out. And of course, if you're a little impatient like myself sometimes, I just went ahead and used my hair dryer to kind of speed up the process, so that way I could get these paints applied and have these images put onto my tumbler. I'm going to go over just a little bit more why I used clear water slide versus white water slide. To me, when I go to cut these out, it doesn't have to be precise, because around the image is going to be clear, while the inside will be the white color like we want. Now, with a white water slide, everything is white behind it, so you have to be very precise with your cutting. I just really like the way that it looks more seamless with the clear versus the white water slides. And I think we've all been there where our machines really don't precisely cut the way they should. So again, that's why I prefer this. All right, now the fun stuff. So we went ahead and our decals are all cut out. As you can see, I just have a normal bowl of water here. Now with a typical water slide, you want to slide the image off onto the surface, but as you can see here, I'm actually flipping it and I'm pressing the paper backing down and I'm just sliding the backing off of it this way. And we are left with a nice decal that pops right on our dark background. So with this, I just want to make sure that I kind of manipulate my image to make sure that it forms to the curves of this particular tumbler. You want to do that with any type of tumbler, but all you have to do is just take whatever you're using to kind of wick out the water from underneath, because you want to make sure you do that. You want to make sure you remove any water that might be underneath those decals. You just want to kind of push it and make it form, and it should lay perfectly flat without any creases in the image. So again, I'm going to go over one more time what we did. We went ahead, we printed out our image on clear water slide paper. We sealed it like we normally would with our clear sealer. We went ahead and we painted our decals that we wanted to make pop on our tumbler. We cut those images out. We let it soak in our dish of water just a little bit. It doesn't take too long with it. It should remove pretty quickly since it's so fresh that we just did it. Then we're going to go ahead and flip it so that way we take the backing and push down and slide the backing off of it so that way it leaves a nice crisp image on our dark background. And of course, every decal that we apply, we make sure that we get all that water out from underneath first before we move on to the next image. Now, as I start to build my little town here, if you guys remember at the very beginning, the spray paint job that I had, you were probably looking at it like that looks crazy, but this is exactly why I wanted it this way. All those little dips and everything like that are just making this town come alive. But of course, wherever your imagination takes you, let it take you there. Whatever type of town you decide to build, whatever colors you decide you want to use, that is exactly how it should be. And I know you guys got this. Now that my little town is almost completely wrapped around the center here, I'm just going to kind of flip it and see where I need to place my last little house and my two little trees that I have left here. Again, you can do up extras if you'd like to, which I did end up doing. I printed out a couple more extra trees and all that. Like I said, however you guys would like to do this is completely up to you. So I went ahead and put those images into the water. I'm gonna go ahead and place my little house right into the center there, so that way I know that I have enough space around it to put my little trees. And then we are ready to finish it up with our little snowman and the gate. Now, if you guys noticed earlier, I did not apply any type of paints on the snowman or the gate. It's down into the white, so I figured I didn't need to do that. But if you guys kind of want it to pop a little bit more, you could definitely go ahead and fill it in with your white acrylic marker and stuff like that if you wanted to just pop a little bit more. But I was perfectly fine with having it done just like this. So after I go ahead and apply everything, I'm gonna actually set that off to the side and I'm gonna let that dry for about 30 minutes. Then we're gonna come back through and add some extra little details. All right, our decals are nice and dry. Now we're ready to add some finishing little details. I'm gonna go ahead and take that white acrylic marker one more time. I'm gonna make sure that I press it down really good to make sure those paints are coming out. Now I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna add just highlights of snowy areas. I'm gonna go ahead and apply that. Then I'm gonna take a little bit more of my white diamond that we used for the bottom, and I'm just gonna sprinkle that right onto where I put my marker. And again, another great thing about this is it doesn't have to be perfect. I just basically went right over where the areas that were already white on the images that I used and just kind of filled in from there. I also went through and did the trees and everything, so you can fully fill in your rooftops, which I did on one of them. I'm even coming up and around the buildings themselves to kind of fill in. I even did up and around the trees, kind of making snowbanks and stuff here and there. Like I said, wherever your imagination takes you with this. But I just really love how it just adds just a little extra touch to it. Now, as I was going here, I happened to notice that some of my houses have chimneys, and that just got me thinking I want to add a couple little more details. So I'm going to show you guys how I finish that up as well here in a second after I get this done. Now, after I added all my extra little details wherever I wanted them, I went ahead and I let that dry. You can hit it up with your blow dry if you'd like to kind of speed up the process, but you want to make sure that this is fully dry before we brush off any of these extra little glitters. So here it is, it's nice and dry. I'm just going to simply take my brush and sweep all those extra little glitters away. Then we're going to start applying our epoxy over top and those other little details that I wanted to show you guys. Now into my epoxy that I'm going to put over top of our images there, I just put a little bit of Hello Winter, which is an opal snowflake, and I also put just a little bit more white diamond in there. I just felt like it really added just a little bit more touch to, especially up in the sky. It's just real slight that you'll be able to kind of see the extra little snowflakes in the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. I'm going to place it onto my turner. And in an extra little cup, or you can just use the container that you're using for the epoxy that you applied this with, I just need the tiniest little amount of epoxy. As you've seen there, it barely covered the bottom of that little container there. You're going to add a little bit of mica powder to it, any type of white pearl or opalescent type of mica powder, because you just want to put a very small dashing into it. You don't need a lot. Again, just a little tiny bit goes a long way. I'm going to go ahead and stir that up really good. Now, sometimes when you add mica powders, they tend to kind of not want to mix properly into your epoxy. Just make sure that you mix it in really well so that way there's no little clumps or anything of it in there. And then all we're going to do is find our little chimneys and just place our little bit of smoke look coming right out of the top of the chimneys. And I feel like it's just all those extra little details just to kind of show your customers that this is handmade. I mean, not only did you apply the glitter, you applied the images. I mean, you pretty much, you hand did the little winter banks down to the snow banks down there, and now you're going to go ahead and apply some smoke coming out of the chimney. It's just all those little details that your customers are going to absolutely love. Now I'm going to go ahead and let that cure overnight. And if you wanted to apply personalization or some type of quote over top of it, that would be the time to do it before you go ahead and add your finishing coats of epoxy. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.